When you think about crime and extreme wealth, your mind probably jumps to a very specific kind of image. But what if that popular idea is totally off? Today, we're going to dig into the real data behind the crimes of the super rich. Seriously, take a second. What do you see?
Is it some kind of movie mob boss, right? A totally ruthless character always surrounded by bodyguards making shady deals in a smoky back room? Yeah, it's a really powerful image, and it's one we've seen in movies for decades.
So, on one side, you have the myth that crime among the rich is this big, bold, violent public spectacle. But then on the other side, well, there's just a big question mark. What is the reality? Does that dramatic picture actually hold up when you look at the facts? Okay, let's get right into it. We are going to try and separate that silver screen fiction from the hard, factual reality. And we'll do that by looking at what the data actually tells us about crime among the ultra-wealthy. Now, let's be super clear. This is not to say that wealthy families are squeaky clean. I mean, far from it. Famous dynasties, think of the Vanderbilts, for example, they have these long histories just filled with public scandals and controversies that have been making headlines for generations. But here's where the whole story kind of takes a sharp turn. Because while there's tons of drama in those scandals, it almost never involves the kind of deadly violence we're used to seeing in the movies. And this is the first big crack in that myth. And the data couldn't be clearer. The finding is that, quote, direct family-perpetrated violence is not a pattern among U.S. wealthy dynasties. So that image, of the murderous patriarch doing anything to protect his empire, turns out it's mostly a Hollywood invention, not a statistical reality. So if it's not violent crime, does that just mean the wealthy don't commit crimes at all? Well, not exactly. To really get what is going on, we have to look at the data from the Forbes 400, and believe me, it paints a very, very different picture. And this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? If the quote-unquote criminally rich aren't running around committing these dramatic, violent acts we all imagine, then what kind of laws are they actually breaking? Well, the answer comes down to a really specific type of crime: white-collar fraud. And what that is essentially is non-violent crime. It's all done for financial gain, usually by professionals in business or government. So you gotta think less about someone using a weapon and more about someone using a pen or a keyboard. And that is it. That's the answer. White-collar fraud is, by a huge margin, the #1 crime associated with the super wealthy. Not murder, not mob-style extortion, but complex financial deception. And listen, this conclusion isn't just some theory, it's based on a deep analysis of criminal cases involving members of the Forbes 400. We're talking about America's richest people. And the pattern is just so consistent. The crimes are all about money, about fraud, not about physical force. They are crimes of ledgers, not of violence. So let's wrap our heads around all this. We started out with this really powerful myth, straight out of Hollywood. But just by looking at the evidence, we've uncovered a reality that is way more subtle. So our perception, which is totally fueled by fiction, is of this dramatic, violent criminality. But the reality, backed up by the data, is one of calculated, quiet, nonviolent financial fraud. It's a type of crime that's much less visible for sure, but one that can have absolutely massive, far-reaching consequences. And that, right there, that is the paradox of wealth and criminality. The actual crime being committed is completely at odds with our cultural image of what that crime should look like. It's happening in boardrooms and with bank accounts, not in some dark back alley. Which leaves us with one last, and I think really important question. If the biggest crimes of the wealthy don't fit our classic idea of what crime even is, if there's no violence or obvious theft, how can we as a society even begin to see it, let alone do something about it? It's definitely something to think about.